1, 2.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
She packed my bags last night pre-flight. 0 hours, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then.
All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
I miss the earth so much, I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space. Such a timeless flight. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. The touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rocket man. Rocket man, burning at his fuse of heaven home. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as ice. And there's no one there to raise them if you did. And all the science I don't understand. It's just my job 5 days a week. Rocket man, rocket man. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. The touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rocket man. Rocket man, burning at his fuse of
check.
Underneath the lantern by the barrack gate, darling, I remember the way you used to wait. 'Twas there that you whispered tenderly that you loved me, you'd always be my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marley. Time would come for roll call, time for us to part. Darling, I'd caress you and press you to my heart. And there, 'neath that far-off lantern light, I'd hold you tight, we'd kiss goodnight, my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marley. Orders came for sailing somewhere over there. All confined to barracks was more than I could bear. I knew you were waiting in the street. I heard your feet, but could not meet, my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marley. Resting in a billet just behind the line, even though we're parted, your lips are close to mine. You wait where that lantern softly gleams, your sweet face seems to haunt my dreams, my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marley. My lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marley.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
She packed my bags last night pre-flight.
All right, and here we are. Can you guys hear me okay? Oops. That is a great cartoon. I'm single-handedly putting some hobby shop owner's kid through school. All right, well, guys, welcome. Glad you could make it. I got my seat elevated, so I don't have to tilt the computer down now. The little gas piston on the bottom died, so I'm just basically sitting on a stack of blankets. Remember, lowest production values on the internet. A little soft, though. Okay, well, can't have that. Let me just touch. There we go. Any better? So, all kinds of cool stuff to talk about, plus whatever you guys want to talk about. First thing I want to do is give a shout out to Mr. Pacer, C. Pacer. He had sent a bunch of the models that were on the last third of that loop, and I had just misplaced the email. And when I put out the Viewers 9 video, he's like, well, I guess I didn't make the cut. I'm like, what are you talking about? You do great models. And I realized finally went and found them. So I recut the 9, the Viewers Builds video 9, and I left the original up, but now there's a second one, a version 2. Redux, redo, however you say that. Ooh, honey's back there wanting some attention. Anyway, shout out to him for all the beautiful work he did. And I'm sorry, I apologize. Guys, if you've sent me pictures that this isn't a contest. I don't judge. That's not good enough. If you send me stuff, unless I can't think of a reason I wouldn't, it's going to go on the viewers' builds. It's not a contest. It's a let's see what everybody's doing kind of thing. I don't care if you don't paint it, if it or it's broken or it's under construction or whatever. This is what's everybody up to kind of thing. I don't want to present it in the best light. So when I see you guys put a lot of work in there, I try to make it look as good as I can. But if you sent me stuff that didn't make it, send it to me again. I don't have the greatest administrative skills on earth, and when I'm out on the road and check this stuff, sometimes I might accidentally delete an email or something. Who knows? Anyway, so now the first thing I thought we would talk about today is John's little bulldog. I sent him. Hans Peter had sent me all those kits that were in bags, and John asked if he could. John C. asked if he could just have the bulldog if I wasn't going to do it. And I knew I'd never get around to it, or at least not for a very long time. So yeah, sure, absolutely. And he not only I said the condition is if I give you a kit, you got to send me pictures when you're done. And he did a fantastic job, as we can see here. Let me expand this for you. As you can all see, he did just a magnificent job on it. Remember, this is 1/72nd scale. So, and I think I talked about this on the show. I was actually envious of the beautiful rigging job he did, because I'd just done a swordfish, and at a distance it looks okay, but the minute you look at it closer, more than a few blemishes show. And I was asking about his technique on rigging, and he he gave me some details about it, drilling the pilot holes and everything, and getting stuff, but using easy line. But it just shows you, the time and attention it takes to get these old biplanes done. And I have another bulldog, and a couple other biplanes that I'm gonna do in 1/72nd scale first as like a warm up. Because when I do that Felix stow that Mr. Hamilton sent to me, I want to make sure that it gets the first class treatment, because it's just such a magnificent kit. And I've just I think we all go through our little waves where we get interested in something. Missy Jordan socks, yeah, maybe. But one of my many fascinations lately has become some stuff with cars, partly because I have some car models I'm working on, and also since I've got this big biplane, rigging is becoming a thing, which is the kind of thing that I've kind of avoided for a long time, because it's just a lot of work. But when you're done, you just get if it's done right, you just get this magnificent representation. You can just sit back and just, and I tell you something. You guys remember the Stagecoach? Oh, hey, Chris, you made it. You're welcome. I'm sorry. I just found that email that I'd lost. I was just telling everybody. I don't know how you've been here, but anyway, I was able to get it up there. And by the way, I know you guys like to chat after the thing's done. I'll try not to leave it up for 3 hours like I did last time, because I forgot about it. But I will loop that video again at the end. So if you want, you can, or you can go out to the new Viewer 9B I just put out and see Chris's work. Anyway, you guys remember the Stagecoach that I did recently for a friend of mine, and I speak to him every week or so, and he just tells me that he just enjoys sitting there in the room looking at it, which is very fulfilling to me. But it's that kind of thing with, when you do a really good job, like with why I want to rig that biplane so well is because, or learn to rig well, is because I want to be able to, get that kind of enjoyment after it's built. A challenge in building it, but then the enjoyment is looking at it. Go, oh, it just looks pretty. Speaking of making things look pretty, something else I wanted to talk about that I have right here. This is by John Kit. So anything he makes, I laughingly call a kit car. This is a Porsche he's working on, and John, correct me, but I believe this is a kit car that you modified to be a slot car, because he has his channel, Scale Car Garage, which is mostly slot car oriented. And if you look on it, you're going to see there's a lot of a very detailed photo etch, and like the rear view mirrors and stuff. Now, I've always had a devil of a time working with photo etches. To me, it's kind of tricky, but the trim and everything. But the rear view mirrors and everything, you look at that, the trim, this thing is beautiful, but it's also functional. And last night, John and I had a rather lengthy Zoom session talking about slot cars and things, and he was telling me about how. And John, jump in here if you got something to correct me if I'm getting something wrong. But apparently, although there are ways to do it that risk throwing the weight and balance of the car off, converting a model kit car to a slot car is done, but often it comes at the sacrifice of some of the internal detail, depending on the internal arrangement of the slot car. And of course, technology's gone a long way to make a lot of this work a little better. Of course, the Porsche is a rear engine car, but still, it's a bit of a trick to get a slot car that doesn't sacrifice some accuracy to be operational. And then, of course, you've got all the same weight and balance issues you're going to have. If it's out of balance, it won't drive very well. And here's another picture. Let me just expand that a little bit. This is obviously a Porsche, and was it 369? I guess a lot of you guys know that Porsche also was involved with Volkswagen, which is why the Porsche sports cars kind of have that Volkswagen Beetle look to them. Or maybe I should say that's why the Beetle has a sort of semi-Porsche look to it. It is meant to race, yeah. Oh yeah, that's another thing. This is 1/32 scale, so you're dealing with very, very tiny. 124 or 125 scale, or 116, obviously, be easier to work with. 1/32 scale, I don't think my eyes can focus at that level. Porsche 356, that's it. And I've been watching John's. It's very nice to go to his channel because he has that very relaxed way of talking. If you feel like you're sitting there, just chatting with a friend. And I'm finding that these websites that I go to, I spend a lot of time on various history websites, but the ones I go to that are where the people are they're clearly doing what they love, and they're inviting you to share it with them, as opposed to preaching to you, here's how you have to do it. And it does like a Carnegie, doesn't it? I'm guessing Dr. Porsche had something to do with the Carnegie design. I actually rode in a Porsche Carrera that a coworker had, and as big as I am, I had to fold up like a cheap wallet to get in that thing. And oh Lord, I'm definitely more of a Camaro guy, something made for us big heavy set Americans. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I think I have a lot of respect for people who can do good photo etch, like rigging. That's another thing that I've always, with my big thumbs, I've always had a little issue with. And when I see nice, clean work like that, I just like to share it. And Carnegie is the poor man's 356. Okay. And John, if it's not too much typing, didn't you say that there was a way to salvage an interior with the modern? You could that there was a system that you could put in front or in back that you can kind of keep a lot of the depth now in the interior. Yeah, I figured, Ferdinand. Yeah, when he wasn't designing tanks that didn't work, or ones that worked too well. Depending on which side of the cannon you're on. Let's see. Give you guys a chance to type in here, because I know it takes a while. There's a delay from when I talk to when it actually goes to YouTube, and then you hear and then you type, and so it's like when they were talking to the astronauts on the moon, that 3-second delay, and which is one of the reasons the guys in Lunar Module had that dead man's corner. They realized that there was a point where NASA could not communicate an abort to them in time for them to get it out of there. Okay, we'll move on. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, here it goes. Okay. Yeah. The car is mid-engine, and the I-built car motors, as well as to have a full interior. Yeah, I really think, of course, something I forgot to mention that I should have opened with is John did this as part of a thing to show that it can look good on the track or on the shell. In other words, this car was made for the shell for display as well as the track, if I have that correct. And that's a pretty high bar to cross when you're dealing with, as soon as models get functional. Really great when you can pull it off, though. And I think the German jerry cans were gray, if I'm not mistaken. Seems like I was just getting informed about this by somebody recently, but yeah, you like small cars and big tanks. That's right. But ironically, Porsche tried to design that electromechanical drive, sort of like a modern diesel electric train has in it, or submarines use. The diesel is supposed to drive a generator, and the electrical technology just wasn't up to it, so they burned out, and the other Tigers won. But it was a technology that eventually made its way into production. He was just ahead of the time. He just didn't have the time to work out the kinks. And parts will fly off just like the real thing. Yeah. That's okay, Max. Welcome aboard. Oh yeah. He did the tie. He was involved in the Panzer VI. He was involved in the one they called the Elephant. They called it the Ferdinand, or which was actually built on the 80 unused chassis that he had produced that when his Tiger tank lost out. He kind of had his fingers in all the pies. It's kind of like Willie Messerschmitt. He did a lot more than just airplanes. He had his fingers on all kinds of stuff too. And if I'm not mistaken, like the Allies, the Germans also painted water cans and jerry cans different colors. And in our army, when I was in, which is of course in the 70s and 80s, water cans were black. Of course, they were also plastic, and jerry cans were still metal. That kind of involvement is why he was on the map. He was kind of their Dr. Benton Quest. You have a problem, if it's aviation, go to Messerschmitt or Hankel, old man Hankel, and if it's electrical or vehicle, you go to Porsche or Krupp. Kind of their go-to. Nova engine, we got Nova can. So, oops, I keep turning the logos off. So, as some of you may know, yesterday I went to the hobby shop to buy this. This is the paint I'm going to use on the Ramcharger Polara. They didn't have the exact color, but I thought this was close enough, and I like it. But anyway, I wound up spending $58, buying all kinds of other stuff, all of which is absolutely essential, mind you. And since I'm working on the Estus video, before I went there, I said, if they have a Mercury Redstone, I'm going to buy it. And sure enough, the very first thing I saw when I went in there was the Estus Mercury Redstone. Now, I've told you guys before, I think the Mercury Redstone is the most just aesthetically symmetrical and beautiful rocket ever made. Just to look at it. It looks like the rocket that an artist would design. And some of y'all had built this and pointed out that the launch escape tower on it had been a real pain, but apparently they simplified it. And there it is in there. Whoops. It shouldn't be too difficult, but I don't want to say that too loud, or the modeling gods will punish me. But I'm going to do this as part of the Estus. I do this as a build, probably as part of the Estus history video. And by the way, Vern and Gletta, his wife, are both still alive. They're in their 90s, but they're still alive. And I found a couple of interviews with them. So unlike some of these history videos, when I do them, the biggest problem is finding enough information to flesh out. That's why some of them are only 5 minutes long. This one's the exact opposite. There's actually some 8mm home footage that they shot back in 1960, 61, and there's several long interviews with them. So it's deciding in this case what information to put in and what to cull out. And apparently, when they first set up, I think they were living in Denver, in Colorado, and apparently at one point, when they first made their machine Mabel that made the engines, a fire chief, they met a bunch of fire chiefs, and one of them basically made a threat to his wife that when he saw what they were doing, making rocket engines, he told her that's okay, that Colorado has some really nice women's prisons. And man, they decided, okay, Denver is not where we want to set up shop, and that's why they moved and set their little facility up elsewhere. And I forget the name of the place off the top of my head. But anyway, that'll all be in the video. But I was like, wow. And that was 1960, 61. But lots of stuff, not enough hours in the day. Oh, by the way, before I forget one other quick thing, next month, there's probably only going to be one live stream because somebody wasn't paying attention when he put in his bid, and it looks like I'm going to be working a lot of weekends next month. So if we do a live stream, it's going to be on my cell phone from a hotel room. Let's see, today's the 9th. I'm working next weekend, so there won't be one then. And let's see, the 6th, the 20th, and 27th I'm working. So there'll probably be one on the 13th, but just wanted to let you know, unless I get some trips traded here. Penrose, that was it. Thank you, William. Penrose. And, oh, okay. John knows where I'm about to go with this because we chatted about it last night. Since you mentioned don't tell your wife, and my wife's right over here, but she already knows this story. I heard this story. There's a story I have to tell you yesterday, and this involves Atlantis Models, the hobby shop, and somebody, I think just this morning, left a comment about who takes their wife to the hobby shop with them or something like that. Or anyway, so let me set the stage. Okay, I go to buy my jar of paint at Hurricane Hobbies here in Jacksonville, Florida, at the corner of Loretto and San Jose, by the way. And it's a great little shop. Ron and Nina do a great job. If you're ever down here, stop by, just say hi. Well, anyway, I go in there, and of course I see the Mercury, and there it is. It's waiting for me when I went to the door. Somehow they knew the great Styrene River was, in full force. So, I go to the, I grab that, and I'm the model, and I go to get the paint, and there's this, I'm gonna say 70-year-old fella, 65, 70, and just to give you a visual image, all right. If you guys remember Gomer Pyle, you remember Sergeant Carter. Sergeant Carter. Okay, just envision a 70-year-old, slightly plumped out Sergeant Carter. I mean, right, flat top the works. Okay, and he's and of course everybody has their booger catchers on, because of the situation. Anyway, so he's over there and he's just grumbling, and he can't find a paint. Now, he can't find the color, and apparently he's doing an aircraft carrier, and he's trying to find the right color. I said, well, see if you can find Battleship Gray. And he goes, well, none of these say Battleship Gray. I'm like, oh, well, that's, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. So I'm like, I'm just going to Google it for him. I left my phone at the house. Ugh. So now he's stuck with what limited memory capacity I have. And so we're trying to look it out and read, and I'm trying to help him. And I'm sitting there going, well, you know what? He says, there's so many grays. I'm like, there's like 30 shades of gray. I mean, according to the book, 50 shades of gray. How clever. Anyway, so I like, any of these, we're looking at a couple of these, as long as, and I'm trying to kind of go Max's models on him, about build it how you want it to be. I'm like, well, unless you're in a competition or something, just get one that you're happy with. And then he says something that, this is where you hear the click click where I step on the landmine. He says, well, I got these 2 aircraft carriers. I got the Ticonderoga and I got the Kitty Hawk, and I got this thing from Atlantic Models. I'm thinking, oh, Atlantis. And I swear as God is my witness, I'm standing by the models, and the entire top of the shelf is just a display of Atlantis models, most of their helicopters, all of which I've built. And I've done a Zoom interview with Pete Vetri and everything, or a Zoom chat with Pete Vetri, and I really appreciate that Atlantis is what they're trying to do. So he starts complaining about, this whole aircraft carrier only had like 26 parts, but I've got this all over this from this Japanese. Come, Tommy something to Mia. And he goes, yeah, that sounds right. And he goes, that's 350 parts. And I was like, well, yeah, but, and I'm explaining, I think there was a Ticonderoga on the shelf. I'm like, but you have to understand, and I explained to him what Atlantis is all about, that Atlantis is, they're repopping old kits. They're 50, 60, 70, year old molds. They're nostalgia builds. They're great for beginners. They're either casual builds. They're easy to do, so on and so forth. And he's like, well, I was in the Marine Corps and I was on a ship. And he loved all the detail that was on the Kitty Hawk that he'd gotten from me. I'm like, well, yeah, but look at the price difference. And I should have just bit my lip, smiled, nodded my head, go, and walked away. Now, here's where the trouble begins. Now, the trouble began when I walked inside. But anyway, here's where it really starts to go south. His wife is with him, and she's standing behind me. And to get the visual, she's standing there like this. And I had actually noticed that, and I was like, well, I should disengage. And then he goes, well, my wife bought it for me. And then, I get from behind me. And guys, close your eyes and tell me what this is. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. She wanted to get him a model, which is also a wonderful thing. He wants a model ship. She sees the $70 or $80 kit from Tamiya. She sees the $20 kit from Atlantis. Bargain shopper, buys the $20 kit. All he can do is complain about there's too much flash, and this is, the parts are the airplanes aren't as detailed, nothing's as detailed, the Tamiya kit's so much better. And I'm like, yeah, but it's true, they're newer molds, but you're paying for that, and then again, oh, big time. That's exactly what it is, Daryl. And then, but there's more, okay? At this point, I'm like, okay, where are the emergency exits? Yeah, Bill, this is kind of going in that direction. So I'm like, well, I should go. But she's behind me. He's in front of me. I got a wall of models on my left and a big rack on my right. And I'm like, I physically can't get out of here. You go, but hold on, there's more. And I'm like, well, it's a great kit for what you pay for it. And I'm sitting there trying to, it's a good bargain deal, and Pete and Rick work real hard to put these kits out and do a good job and everything. But he's a nice guy, I'm sure. He's just kind of in, I want to complain mode. I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to look for a way out of there. And then I hear her again. And she flanks us. She comes around the other side, and that's when I hear, we need to go. Are you done yet? And I'm like, okay, now I am reaching for the imaginary ejection seat handle. And I figure if he's anything like me and has any survival instinct at all, exactly, Charles. Yeah, danger. And I'm like, oh, well, she's actually verbalized it now. She's ready to go. He's going to leave. Guess what he does? Go ahead. Guess what he does? I'll wait. Okay. You guys have pretty much got the idea. And instead of just going, yes, dear, oh, you betcha, he just goes, nah, I'm talking with this fella, and he's seen that what I've done. I'm like, oh, no, I've been singled out for execution. And then she's just like, well, and she's holding some paint seed selection, and she just puts it right down there. Well, here, take these, and she's just stacking them because I can't. I'm going to go in the car and sit and wait and do Facebook. I'm tired of standing up. Here, and she's digging her purse. Here's my wallet. It's got the credit card. And I'm like, okay. She's heading for the door. I can make a break. And I'm like, dude, how did you survive in the Marine Corps with no survival instincts? Anyway, I was like, God, I hope I didn't cost this poor guy. But now, I'm talking with this guy. I'm like, it's not my fault. Anyway. You heard that, right? Anyway, he sold you. So anyway, eventually I managed to break contact, check 6, light the burner and go straight down and bailed out. But, so when I get my stuff together, I go over to the counter and he's checking out and, here was the one of the little gotchas. I've kind of left the minor part out. I bought some solva set and some microsol, and he needed some of that. Actually, he was getting some. I remembered I needed some, and he goes, "Which one of these goes on first? Is the prep?" And I was like, I always get these two confused. I said, and again, looking for my phone, but it's like, I'm pretty sure it's the microsol is the prep and the microset goes on afterwards. But I said, there's 100 YouTube videos that'll tell you, because there's no instructions on these things. They say almost the exact same thing on front, but, I was like, don't, but when I got to the counter to pay, he was asking the same question to Ron, and, Ron, who runs the shop, just looked at me and go, "Oh, ask Max. He knows. He has his own YouTube channel." I'm like, oh God, we just did deja vu all over again. Anyway, I made sure to get out the door and get in the car and disappear before he did, because I didn't want to be around for the little mushroom cloud that was going to be over Hurricane Hobbies when he got back in his car. But that was just too good not to share. And I have a real complex script here today, I thought you guys would get a kick out of that. Yeah, he was so at the red alert klaxons, exactly. It's like watching Star Trek muted. The microset does not do the setting. They should have reversed the names. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So, I have a Kia Sedona. Don't go that fast. That's right. It's not a speed demon, but it is really smooth at 80 though. And then, Your Honor, is when I heard the sound of gunfire. So I thought you guys could kick a lot of that. Oh yes, because that's going to end well. So something else I thought you guys could appreciate. Cam, I'm going to tell your story. And I'm going to kind of, okay. The Cam sent me an email, and sets it up, Saul, okay. He knows a guy who does these magnificent, I think he sent me some pictures, some magnificent armored dioramas, handmade, takes months to do one, incredible attention to detail. We're talking up in the Shep Payne category. And there was the usual, suburban commando that comes in, the nitpicker, the guy, and if I remember correct, his name was Morris. So I'm going someplace with this. If you guys remember Morris the cat from the old was it Friskies commercials or whatever, that's what I see in my head. But anyway, apparently this guy's about twice my size, and he's looking for something to complain about to show his intellectual superiority or whatever, and he can't find anything. And apparently the fellow who had made the diorama had gotten one of Verlinden's little like dead cows that you can put there as like war detritus or whatever. And the only thing the guy can come up with is, well, you've got a dead cow there, and there were no cattle in that part of France because they quit farming it long before, blah, 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 and huffed off in a huff because he couldn't find anything else to complain about, which is a win for the good guys because, but I was just, because of that, henceforth, I will refer to on this channel the Rivet County nitpickers, the one that have to find something wrong to stretch their own ego. I am going to refer to them as Morrises. And apologies to anybody who has Morris in their name. And by the way, Dario, I downloaded. I believe you sent me the picture of you with Vern and Gletta and the golf cart. I downloaded that, and I think you said it was okay. I'll probably put that somewhere in the video towards the end of it. It's really nice to get to chat with. I emailed the Vern Estus website, but about what I'm about doing the video, but I haven't heard anything back. Guys, Dario we got a chance to meet Vern and Gletta, and they seem like real nice people, and they certainly followed an unusual path. Decided to go in. They basically created model rocketry as we know it today, and well, I think the one I got's fine, but thanks. It looks like a good crisp photo. But anyway, man, I hope they're around for a lot longer too, because yeah, they really do seem like fine folk. So, as you guys probably imagine, a lot of y'all get fine scale modeler. This we had talked about this because you guys know I like to make these goofy fan film movie things like Godzilla versus the Wehrmacht and and crossover. I love crossover stuff. The idea had come up, and a couple of people even done some recobbled fan films about the idea of matching up Godzilla with War of the Worlds and that kind of stuff. And I think we even talked about it on this channel at one point. And sure enough, this is in fine scale modeler in the latest edition. And although I prefer to use the 1954 version still, and I just thought that was too cool. Destroy All Martians. And I'm serious. That is a movie I would pay money to go see. And I got the issue right here. And let's see. Didn't know if there was anything in there that was particularly... Just looking at the article. It's several pages long. And of course it's a model building article. But what I was also impressed with was the buildings and everything that they made. And it gets into that kind of stuff because we've been talking about architectural models and stuff recently, and they get to all their techniques and everything. I just thought that was really pretty interesting. Actually, this goes on for several pages. It's actually a pretty big article. I imagine most of you guys probably already have it. But I just thought that was super cool. And it made me think of a question for the channel, and that is, if you were going to do a crossover, where is it? 300? Wow. I didn't realize it was that expensive. What would be your crossover if you were going to do it? And it doesn't have to be science fiction. That's just kind of my go-to for a crossover, but it could be any kind of crossover that would be something interesting. I can think of so many. It'd be interesting to oh, great. Sorry to hear that, Jeff. That's the kind of thing. If I was going to model some kind of crossover, something might be kind of cool, just a little tongue in cheek, and do like Rebel with like the James Dean character in Rebel Without a Cause, and Fonzie from Happy Days. Well, Martians didn't wear their masks, and they got to see how that turned out. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of a cool thing. And let me just let's see. I wanted the other one. Just trying to put some stuff up on the screen so it's not just my smiling face. All right. Under the category of what you might call book reports, I am trying to get together, do a Zoom with Patrick and Mike Mullane together, talking about the books and, The Father, Son, the Holy Shuttle and Riding Rockets and just stuff in general. But I've also been reading another one that was sent to me. You guys have probably heard me talk about the Rocket Ranch. Okay, now I'm almost through with this one. This is really a technical manual. I mean, he gets really into the nuts and bolts, right down to the switchology of stuff. Now, if you are at all into real space models and everything, this is a heck of a resource. It's got a lot of photos I've never seen before, tons of diagrams, a lot of technical detail about stuff. And something I might have known at some level, but is that the systems they use to get rocket. Now, by the way, this book Rocket Ranch is about JSC, the KSC, the Kennedy Space Center, and the Battlestar Star Trek. I think everybody wants to see a Battlestar Star Trek, just like a lot of people want to see a Star Trek Star Wars crossover. Well, one crossover movie that was kind of interesting, if you guys remember The Final Countdown with Kirk Douglas, where the modern aircraft carrier goes back just before Pearl Harbor. That was, I'd call that a crossover, sort of. Well, anyway, Martians. Old Aurora UFO in its pot. That'd be good. That would be cool. I like that. Cats in space. Yeah, the Nimitz. I wanted to show you something. Now, you guys have all seen the crawler and the launch umbilical tower going out there. This book breaks all this down. Okay, here is some stuff that, as much as I know about this stuff, it was kind of new to me. This is the Apollo mobile launcher platform, or what we call the launch pad. It is its own thing. And this is, of course, what the rocket sits on. And in fact, there are rooms and walkways and stuff inside that, so they can serve. There's a ton of equipment down in there that it has a crew that services, obviously not when the rocket's being fired. That gets mated with the launch umbilical tower, which we all know, the big red launch tower. That thing, even though it's externally a lot of lattice work, it actually has offices and an incredible amount of computers and equipment built into it. Plus, I think it's a 25 or 39 ton crane on top. When these two are mated, then of course the crawler transporter goes underneath it, picks out a lot and takes it out to the pad. Once it's out on the pad, you have the mobile service structure, which is on rails and is pulled up to the rocket so that it looks like this. Okay. So on the pad, there are 4 completely separate entities that we kind of think of as one. And one of the things I was wondering was, how come they put all that trouble, that went through considerable expense to make this mobile service structure, instead of just having the launch umbilical tower have extensions on it? But apparently, since those swing arms have to drop away and everything's critically timed, they have so many critical systems on them, it was deemed unsafe to add extra structure to it. So they just built that mobile service tower, which is a completely separate unit, much simpler. But one of the primary jobs of that scaffolding is, of course, it provides access to the outside of the rocket, but one of its primary functions is so that the crew can safely install the explosives that range control has to use if Apollo go bad and have to go boom. And that was now that is just the pad on the crawler. So they're 2 completely different units, although they work together. But and the reason I picked these is just because it shows you the kind of detail that this book Rocket Ranch gets into, and it gives you some small idea of the complexity of the operations down there. This is the a slide I put together showing stuff that, until I saw this, I didn't realize that here's the launch pad on the lower left, or I should say the area. And you have all these facilities around it. You have the burn pond for excess hydrogen. You have flame diverters, the flame trench. You have all these gas facilities, rocket propellant one storage, all this stuff. That's what you see getting pumped up into the ship. And of course, you got on the lower right, you have the white room attached to it. And there's actually an office in there with a desk. And when they had the Apollo 1 explosion, because people forget when it caught fire, it also exploded. It actually blew one of the guys into the desk and burned the papers on the desk. So they have these working offices everywhere. But here was the part that I really didn't understand or know anything about, was these two top diagrams are the top of the launch pad the launch pad area without the crawler or the pad in place. And if you look to the left, upper left, where it says ECS building and all this stuff, the substations, these are all rooms that are underground. Now, they're not under the flame trench to the side, but they're underground underneath the pad area. And I had no idea that they actually had rooms and offices and computers and all this equipment in rooms underneath the launch area, directly underneath the rocket. And of course, obviously, they're evacuated prior to a launch. And if you look on the left where it says egress system, the left of the left diagram, that little circle there, that's that little room that the astronauts would slide down the cable and hide in if the rocket went bad and they were able to get out of it. On the right, you see all of the equipment that would be above ground. So this book just goes into incredible detail about that. And I thought that was the kind of thing that if... I remember we were talking about we were talking about the architectural models, and I'm thinking if somebody ever wanted to make something really impressive, they could, if there was a way that they could make it where you could see, a three-dimensional model, the launch pad area, that would be one. I mean, more than I'd ever take on, but that would be one heck of an undertaking to make all of that to scale. They do have some models at the Cape in the museum, but they are not terribly detailed. They have some of this stuff, but it's not like you can pull off a cover or look through a clear area and see what's inside. It's just surface detail. But this book, Rocket Ranch, is really as much of a space kid as I am. It has really been an eye opener just how complex that facility really is. And it gets into how the computers are hand-wired and everything else. There's just incredible. Oh, before I forget, I told someone I would ask this question. Apparently, he's doing, I believe it was a Canadian CF100, but he needed air defense gray, and the old number was FS16473. But does anybody know what the current contemporary to that air defense gray is, since so many of the paints have gone out of production? So if anybody knows what air defense gray would be with the new stuff, then stick that in the comment section. I have card launch umbilical tower, but scared to start. Yeah, that's it is not only, you're right, Eric, and I made a couple of mistakes with mine, and I'm going to give you a little advice on working with that thing. I was putting it on foam board to give it some backing, and the foam board, even if you cut it with a razor, it gives a nice cut, that stuff kind of tends to unbuckle, I guess is the way you'd put it, with moisture and heat. And I would recommend that the instructions, you just go ahead and print out a set of instructions. The booklet, it's all on a CD and it's huge, but it's going to be easier just to be able to flip through pages than to try and constantly on your phone or your iPad scrolling back and forth. Read the instructions 3 times. Get yourself some good stuff to make the creases with. Cut everything with a razor or something. You're going to go through a lot of razor blades too. Or if you do use scissors, just make sure they're a really good pair. But one other thing is, LOHM, is that I would recommend if you're the backing, you might want to consider something more like plastic, or I just found the foam board didn't do a good job. I know a lot of people just use cardstock, and I guess that would work, but at least for the base, for the actual pad, I would recommend doing that in a hard plastic, but I would not use foam board. Now the edges are buckled. It just looks like crap. So I am considering, although I always say things like this, but I am aware of how grandiose a comment this is, that it might almost be easier to use those parts as a pattern and cut the parts out of plastic. Use use styrene, just because we're all used to working with model, because paper it has its merits, but it also, everything's pre-colored. That's nice. But one other thing is that paper does not mimic metal very well. So the things you guys may recall me talking about, the origami pieces, these were they weren't the hold down arms. They were the stage 1 service arms. There's like 3 or 4 of them. And they're the big things that when you see the footage of the Saturn lifting off, you see these big arms swing up, and they have these towers, and they swing up into the tower. And this book at Rocket Ranch actually covers this. What those are, I didn't realize until I read this. You always think of the umbilicals as being those big things on the gigantic umbilical tower swing arms that you see those big plates pulling out, and the swing arms fall out of the way in a sequence and everything. What I didn't realize is down at ground level, on the first stage of the rocket, at the very base, near the fins, there are plug-ins down there also, and the service arms that supply them swing up to get out of the way. And apparently, despite being made out of high-grade steel, they learned that on the first couple of unmanned Apollos, when they launched them, that they were still, the faces, the interfaces and everything were getting melted by the rocket exhaust. So they put these round covers over them, and those units swing up and lock into those, and then those round covers have a door that rolls over and locks down to protect it from the rocket blast. And the things are made of a steel lattice work. So when you try to make something like that out of paper, and here they are, and this is the unit that I'm talking about, and when you try to make that out of paper, it just looks horrible. And actually, here's a picture of one of them getting burned up by the, and so that mechanical arm that's sticking out there has a big plate on the end of it with a bunch of equipment. And I didn't make slides of this earlier, obviously, but I wasn't planning on getting this into the weeds with it. But when it pulls out and those doors close, of course, it still gets melted, so it rolls up, and that arc part, that curved door slams. It's just there to protect it from the rocket exhaust, because apparently it can't handle 7,000 degrees for very long. Here are the actual hold downs. These are where people talk about the hold downs. Those are what actually hold the rocket in place. 600,000 pounds of pressure. And and of course, as you guys know, if they were using the Saturn 1B, the short one, they had to engineer that milk stool. And there's quite a bit of information on that. And there are people, if you're doing one, there are people who make models of the milk stool for the short Saturn. This book goes into incredible detail about all this stuff, about these. I knew there were a lot of guys at computers during the launch. I did not realize that the Launch Control Center at the Cape has about 10 times as many stations as Mission Control. It's much bigger. And this is basically a seating map of the Launch Control Center, like 400 stations or something like that. It's just, whoever researched this book, God, I mean, he worked there for a long time, but he's got the annunciator panels on here and the switchology and stuff. I mean, you could just about run Mission Control from this thing. Oh yeah. This is the one I was going to show. Because of the way computers worked back in those days, they couldn't just simulate the way we can. To do a simulation, they had to actually run the equipment, but that would trip the system to fire. So Oh God, yeah, man. NASA ran on nicotine and caffeine. So when they were doing tests, they had to use jumper wires, jump from this point to that point to do the test. So it wouldn't actually fire the thing, but it would run the signal. This is all nothing but jumper wires for a test. I mean, it looks like a bloody plate of spaghetti to me. Because everything back then was manual connections. And just incredible. Anyway, if you're doing real space, something down at the Cape, that book is the go-to. It'll answer any question you ever had about it, and with room to spare. Yeah. And apparently one of the reasons you see in some you see them pulling out panels and stuff is with all that wiring, they were frequently having problems with broken wires and stuff. So of course the simplest thing to do is just pull the whole panel out and stick another one in, and then send that one to the shop to get fixed. That's right. That's exactly right, Eric. The modification of pad 39A was because of decommission. And they talk about the construction of the pads, including 34, 37, 39A and B. This book primarily is about the development of the Kennedy Space Center for the Apollo program. It does talk some about Mercury and Gemini, but very little, because there wasn't that much infrastructure for those. One of the things it talks about is like the limitations of the old technology. One of the reasons a lot of these things were put either underneath the launch pad or in intermediate, it was because they could only go so far before you had signal loss. So, and they talked about what the computers did, and it wasn't like today. When you think of computers doing things, the computers could sequence stuff and everything more accurately and quicker than people could. Man, and the systems were so complex they had to. But back in Gemini on the Titans and everything, where it was all done manually, and a lot of people resistance. Well, the first year or two, everything was done with the RCA 110 computer, and which was a hand-wired computer with 256 byte wires, all the wires going each way, and apparently they were having a lot of failures with it. And here's where it's a government operation, right? RCA made the computer. IBM lost the contract to RCA, but the IBM people were the one using the computer, and they really resented having to use an RCA computer. So there was a lot of infighting, but it's your fault, because they were having a lot of problems with the computer. Well, one of the things they discovered, and this actually is something that any model builder can appreciate, because we've all had something like this happen. Have you ever used a paint or something that reacted with the plastic or with another paint or with the decals, and everything went south, right? Well, I'll call them circuit boards. They weren't really circuit boards. They were the wired memory. But they had transistors and little things on them. And because they're going to be down at the Cape where you have all the salt air and the humidity. And back then solid state was that was the cutting edge technology. It was just starting to come on. He actually talks about that. Well, these units, they had to put a protective coating on them, which I think was a kind of a varnish. But what no one knew at the time was the actual unit and the protective coating they had on it had completely different thermal profiles. And what happened, these computers generated a lot of heat. And of course the metal would expand, and it was made to do that. But I think ceramic based coating they put on it had the opposite. When it heated up, it actually contracted. And what you had was expanding metal and contracting coating fighting each other, and it was causing breaks. No one could understand why the stuff they were having trouble troubleshooting it, because when they let the computer cool down, everything went back to its original position and all the connections were good. And it took them the better part of a year to figure this out. And then they had like 10,000 points that had to be checked and everything. And it was over a year to get this problem resolved, and they got it worked out. So that was just one example of the problems that they ran into, but they overcame them. And that's the one thing they did have going for them, was a virtually unlimited budget, which is how they were able to just keep throwing manpower at it. And so we've all had some kind of conflict like that, and NASA wasn't immune. They had their painting problems with the rockets, also certain paints that didn't adhere well and stuff, or it's they actually had some problems on a couple of rockets because where they put the black paint, it was causing heating in the Florida sun inside and was causing component failure. So it was just it's not like anybody ever built a Saturn V before. You learn as you go, and it's like when Grumman got the contract to make the lunar module. Great, how do you do that anyway? And, so I thought MEK would be good. Oh well. Sound problem. So you're not hearing me, Northern Man? Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Don't use enamel on vinyl. Yeah, my Mr. Spock is still sticky after 12 years because of that. It literally, he's never dried. And, okay, good. So, well, that was really all of the things I had. So you guys come up with something to talk about. Bum 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 ba da ba 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 ba. Spock needs to be vulcanized. Ah. 3D printing. Yeah, Burning Bee 24. Well, yeah. The one thing I do know from watching that Sense of Scale series of videos about Hollywood is that one of the biggest problems people are having, your Vulcan, with the 3D stuff is that it's brittle, and they've had a lot of problems with that because of that. So that's of course, that's very offset by the ability to make just about bloody anything. I used metal wire for struts on a small Stearman, and I thought it looked okay until I took a photograph, looked at it. If you're going to use guitar wire for struts, the one thing I think you're going to have to cut them very precisely, and you really need pilot holes to put them into, but they do look good. Oh, one other thing, especially John, you brought the the 3D printing machines. A couple folks I know who've done some of it have said point blank that the little commercial 3D printers you get for your house are basically crap. If you want to make chess pieces or something, maybe, but some of the medium will hold paint, so yeah, I did fly model rockets, and I of course got this one. I actually still have a few engines that they're still good, but I'm not sure they're the right size for this one. But I want to make a pretty one out of that, but I do want to fly it also. I'm hoping they'll let me fly it out at the RC Club, which I haven't been to in about a month. I still got to pay my dues. Yeah, they're actually already out in the Tarbis, but I got some really nice 148 scale airplanes and some books, and they're on that last video. And as if I finally have a real Japanese Val, not a chopped together Franken Val, and I want to do a nice job on that. And that reminds me, I was trying to remember who it was that had their tail painted like that one. It might have been Kobayashi, and he did get shot down at Midway. Oh, actually got shot down circling around the fleet. I remember reading in Shattered Sword that apparently he was orbiting, I think it was the Yorktown, and they said he was like flying like it was a Sunday afternoon. He was just out there trying to do battle damage. Just asked him, a couple of Wildcats snuck up and flamed him. And what he was doing off by himself like that and just flying around in circles. But they also had a Val that got tagged, and this guy had it coming. Now, For those that don't know, the Kate torpedo plane did not have a forward firing gun, but the Val did have a pair of guns in the nose. And apparently the Val, like the American SBD, both the dive bombers, when they were light, they were agile enough they could fly a combat air patrol, or you couldn't take them too lightly. And although I know a lot of the SBD pilots, even though they had a pair of 50s up in the cowling, a lot of times they would pull one of them out just to lighten the airplane. Anyway, long story short was that one of them tried to strafe a couple of downed Americans in a raft, and a pair of Wildcats picked him off too. And I was like, man, that's not cricket. What happened to the old molds from the 50s and 60s? Well, telescope replicator, there are about as many stories as there are molds. A lot of these molds ended up with companies like Atlantis and Glencoe. The Aurora molds went to Monogram. Monogram merges with Revell, so all the Aurora, Monogram, Revell molds are in one place. They all basically wind up in Illinois. Revell Germany takes a bunch of them, but then also makes some of their own. But a lot of them never left Illinois. And recently they were picked up by Round 2. Then Round 2 did a fire sale on the ones that didn't once, and they've gone to different manufacturers. Speaking of which, let me add a picture up here. Let me see. There was a couple of vintage cars that were, I think Atlantis might have the molds to, that some folks were saying they would very much like to see back in production. And let me see if I can afford. Here we go. I'm not 100% sure, but I think these two cars might have the molds, might be over at Round 2 or at Atlantis. So I got to pop off an email to Pete Vetri and say, look, I know some people that are saying if you put these back in production, they'll buy a bunch of them. So a lot of these molds are in, now some have been destroyed, and you guys all know about the train wreck and everything that took place with the Aurora, the famous Aurora train wreck, which apparently in kit model world has become something along the lines of an X-file. The train derailed, and I've heard it happen in Albany, I've heard it happen in Buffalo. Molds got scattered all over the place. And mind you, these things weigh 800 pounds or more. And when Monogram got them, when they did their manifest, a bunch of them were missing. Some of them were caked in mud. A lot of them went into storage. Some were trashed. Monogram did want Aurora's World War I series aircraft. Most of them did got put in production. But a lot of the molds were some were destroyed. And even Abe Shikes, when he was running Aurora, had a few perfectly good molds destroyed because he didn't want them used anymore. It's just, Atlantis has a release schedule on their website. And you got to remember, even though Atlantis has a lot of these molds, they were able to get them from Round 2. I think it was Round 2, yeah. And because, as I understand it, Revell Germany decided to let all the molds that were in Illinois go, but it was a block purchase. You couldn't cherry pick. And a lot of smaller companies just did not have the money or resources to do that. And then Round 2 got them, and Round 2 apparently is really starting. My understanding is they're really starting to focus on their cars. And which I think the cars are the best seller outside of Bandai's Gundam series and the Mecha series, which are still the top selling models ever in the tens of millions. The cars I think are still the number one selling thing, and that's partly because cars can cross mediums. You can buy them as display shelves, you can use them as slot cars, and I don't think anybody's making promotional cars anymore, but a lot of them got their start that way. So, anyway, when Round 2 decided to let a bunch of stuff go, I know Atlantis picked it up, and it's ironic in a way because Atlantis is in New York, which is where Aurora was at, and they're not actually that far away from where the old Aurora factory was. And in fact, Andy Anchus, who was an Aurora employee for years, has been helping Rick and Pete with getting this stuff going. Anyway, the molds went, apparently for a lot of these molds, they went from New York to Illinois, and when they were used out of Illinois, they sat there until they were acquired just recently and made their way back to New York. Despite, it's kind of like having a gold certificate versus a bar of gold. You put a bar of gold in a bank, and you have a certificate that says this is your bar of gold. Well, you can trade that certificate like money because it allows you to claim that bar of gold. But the bar of gold never actually moves. The certificate is what gets moved around. Well, it's kind of the way it worked with a lot of these molds. The molds were parked in one place. People would buy ownership of them. Sometimes they would use them or lease them out, but a lot of times they just sat there until now they've all been shipped back to New York. And this isn't the only time that's happened. And you don't just move an 800-pound mold. I mean, if you go to the Atlantis website, they have pictures, and they're picking the molds up with forklifts. And but even if you have the mold, you don't just put it back into production. They have to be inspected, they have to be cleaned, and a lot of other things. Maintenance has to be done on them. But also, you have to set the machine up. You got to get them in the frame, because the molds are inserts that go in the frame. The frame is god-awful big and heavy. But when you look at what it does, then you got to do test shots and get everything working. The nice thing is that when you're doing your test shots and all this other stuff, you can throw it back in the hopper, regrind it, and remelt it. So the plastic can be reused until, the medium can be reused until the molds look good. And somebody told me that Atlantis was finally making clear parts for the little trucks and stuff that don't, the old repop kits that don't come with any they don't come with any glass on them originally, but now they're making them. Yeah, that's another thing. They do sometimes upgrade the molds. Sometimes you have to have them recut, but if you've got the old mold, it still gives people something to work with. Because, for example, they can shoot copies in a different medium, make the changes, and use those to help make the new mold. But I built that little Atlantis Patton in 46. Easiest tank I've built in forever. Everything fit fine. Had no problems building that thing. I think it looks good. I mean, yeah, it's not going to win any award. Well, I don't know, a little work, you might win an award, but I just find those Atlantis kits, the repops, the old kits, just to be fun, easy, relaxing builds. And then, when you feel like, okay, I'm ready to put my fangs into something, then you get your 150-piece Tamiya kit. But that's me. Whatever makes you happy. That's the whole thing is not everybody. Folks talk about kits that, this one's better than that one. Well, better in what way? It might be more detailed, but does that make it better for the kind of build you're doing? And that's what I was trying to tell. I was just trying to explain to that fellow at the hobby shop yesterday. It's variety. Some people want a BMW, some people want a Volkswagen, some people want a Lamborghini. I like a pickup truck. Different strokes. What else do we have here? The Challenger was lost. Yeah, in both Riding Rockets and Father, Son, Holy Shuttle, they talk about that because it hit them personally because they were in the program. That was pretty much the death knell of the shuttle program. But there is one thing I have to add, and that is that the shuttle, and anyone who's being honest at NASA will tell you this is not like a big state secret. The shuttle was so expensive to operate that it was using up the funds that NASA could have used towards building its replacement. And that was the dark side. They didn't have the unlimited budgets of the 60s. So, that's the kind of the same thing with tanks. A lot of people don't realize we have not designed a new tank since the 70s. We've just kept upgrading the M1, and it's a great tank. But we haven't actually made any new hulls, I think, since the 80s. They just take them out, remanufacture them. I mean, they can strip them down to the bare metal, make any changes they need and put them back together. But I don't think we've actually fabricated any new hulls since the mid-late 80s. And we all know about the B-52s. Those things will be 100 years old when they retire them. Of course, they probably replaced every part on them a couple of times, but there you go. Always want to do the truck from Convoy. Anyone do it? No, but I do remember when they had the Kenworth from the TV show Moving On with Frank Converse and Claude Akins. And also BJ and the Bear. But the thing I remember that show is, if I'm not mistaken, is I don't know what they were trying to accomplish with that. If you guys remember the show BJ and the Bear, they had the young trucker who had a chimpanzee with him. And I'm like, is this Convoy or Tarzan? The Power Lux or one of those. Yeah. Yeah. I think we all know the pickup truck. Space tanks. Oh, well, now you're talking Halo. Yeah, Eric's talking about the amount of work it took to recycle the shuttle. NASA knew when they told Congress that, oh, we'll be getting off a flight every week or a flight every month. They knew there was no way they were going to do that. They knew there were. Oh yeah, we'll get stuff into space for $10 or $100 a pound. You know, they knew there was no way they were going to get it in for less than $1,000 a pound. Every which way. Now you see, and every which way but loose, and any which way you can. They had the good taste to use an ugly monkey. They used an orangutan. Right turn, Clyde. Yeah, well, it truly was salesmanship, and it's just going to be a space truck. It's just you know, oh God. And the shuttle was more complicated than the Apollos, and it didn't even go to the moon, or at least my understanding, it was more complex. Although it had more modern avionics, it was still using late Apollo style technology, although it was advancing very quickly. So another thing I remember, all the Apollos and all the shuttles were different. No two of them were identical because these weren't production line. They were all handmade and sometimes mission specific. Ford Aeromax, oh yeah, have to be. Anything from the Mad Max world takes a lot of scratch building, but on the upside, it's easy to cover up any blemishes because they were basically rolling blemishes. Cannonball. I wonder if that was spoofed off the movie Cannonball Run. And but I don't know if you guys are familiar with the website or YouTube channel called VinWiki, but a guy in Georgia runs it. But he's a car salesman, and he was big in that Cannonball Run stuff and everything. And they finally stopped doing it just a year or two ago, and somebody set a new record though. Got coast to coast in the U.S. in like, gosh, I forget what it was, 31 hours or something. I forget. It was you know, incredible. Yeah. Convoy, Chris Christopher and Ernest Borgnine. No, CW Call. They actually added some verses to the song. Yeah, Eric, that's about right. I had thought about doing the 3402 just as a lark, just so I could say I'd done it, you know, the Cannonball Run. And maybe Cannonball Run came from the Cannonball Show. But what I thought I would do is get a minivan and fill up fuel cells and a bed so the two drivers could switch and one could sleep. But that way they wouldn't have to stop for fuel. You could put enough fuel in to go nonstop, because that cuts about 9 minutes and you have to make several fuel stops, even though a lot of these guys put fuel cells in the car. Now, what you could do, if this would be an interesting idea, if you wanted to for the car modelers out there, you can look at some of these Cannonball cars and the mods they make, and they're subtle because they don't want to stand out the police. But like extra fuel cells and things, sometimes they're in the back seat and stuff, and you could, like, you know, modify your car to look like a Cannonballer. You know, so it would kind of look like a normal car until you get close, and it wouldn't. What's that in the back seat? They're fuel cells, you know, and that's this and that's that, and there's the extra set of binoculars, and there's the radar detector and everything else, and kind of like doing the anti-undercover police car. Yeah, Eric. You guys are talking about the VAB, which the Vehicle Assembly Building, which is mentioned a lot in here. And I didn't even realize that the Vehicle Assembly Building was designed and capable of processing four Saturn V's at a time. That's why it's as big as it is. They never used more than 3 of the bays, but it did have that capacity. But at one point they had, and what this allowed them to do was, you have to think how far ahead they planned these missions. What you could have was your Saturns in various states of preparation for the pipeline. Now, I want to bring up one quick point about the Vehicle Assembly Building, which is still, supposed to have the greatest internal space and biggest building and all this other stuff. It's basically a big shell. I mean, there are offices in there, but it's mostly internally lattice work. It has 3 really big cranes. One of them's up to like 375 tons now. Back then, they were about 250-ton cranes. And they're the ones on the tracks and the ceiling to hoist stuff up. But there's a big misunderstanding about the Vehicle Assembly Building. When the rocket components went to the Cape, they did not go to the VAB. That was the second step. The VAB is where the stacks were built. First, everything had to be tested. All the bugs had to be worked out. So they went to the MSOB, the Manned Space Operations Building, which looks like a 3rd scale VAB. And that is where, like, when you see the lunar module being hoisted down the ceiling, being taken over and dropped down, all the guys in the white suits running all the tests and everything, that's not the VAB, that's the MSOB. Once everything is operational and it's signed off for flight, then it gets moved to the VAB to be stacked. And of course, once everything's put together in the VAB, the crawler comes in, it's mated to the pad, the launch umbilical tower is rolled in, it's all mated, and then the crawler picks it up and takes it out to the launch pad. It is a heck of a procedure. Now, the way they had it set up was that you could have up to 4 Saturn V's being processed at one time. One of them could just have a few components in the bay while most of the stuff's the MSOB getting tested. But the idea is each one was a various state. So one of them's ready to roll out. And what it allowed you to do is have 4 Saturn V's in the pipeline, even though they never had more than 3 at one time. But it allows you to have 4 Saturn V's in the pipeline at any given time in various states of preparedness. And given how long it took to put all this together, you really kind of had to do it that way, even to get one off every couple of months. Because these things spent a lot of time in there. And, yes, Grand Theft Auto, Chris. I actually remember seeing the advertisement for that in the 70s at the Leaf Theater in Quincy, Florida. And I still remember the poster. I'm like, at the wheel of the car. And I was like, Opie? Richie from Happy Days is stealing cars? And I'm pretty sure the Grand Theft Auto was, or Grand Larceny Auto, something like that. I think it was Grand Theft Auto was the name of the movie, which I do believe is where they got the name for the game, but I could be wrong on that. Last count, 110. Now you think about that. Most of these guys that did the cannonballs only averaged about 80 to 90 miles an hour average because of the fuel stops and that kind of stuff, and the areas they had to slow down. So 110 average means he had to be smoking a lot of the time. And trust me, it's one thing I learned from flying and doing your whiz wheel math, on the E6B and your airspeed calculations. Extra speed does not make up that much time. Give you an example. I'm flying, we'll just say 2 hours up to New York, and I'm Mach 0.78, all right? And that's scheduled 2 hours and 20 minutes. I decide I'm trying to do whatever, so I bump it up to Mach 0.80, which is all well within the capability of the airplane. And I've added 0.03 Mach to the airplane. Now I'm burning an extra probably 600 pounds an hour, but I'm actually only adding about 12 knots of speed. And when you do the math calculation, I've saved about 90 seconds. So you're burning 600 to 1,200 pounds of fuel to save maybe, if you're lucky, 2 minutes. So that's why a lot of guys like to fly back in economy mode. Same thing in a car. You can speed down the highway at 100 miles an hour, but you hit a traffic jam and spend 10 minutes, at 50 miles an hour, and look how it slashes your numbers. It's like the math be against us. Yeah, everybody remembers Adrian Barbeau in the Lambo, the Adrian Lambo. And the famous scene where she's like, the state trooper's walking up to her and she's like, zip, can I help you, officer? And it's a lady police officer. Yeah, honey, you got a driver's license in there somewhere? It's like, we all seen American Graffiti. And that was a movie that helped make Harrison Ford. And Grand Theft Auto, if it's the one I'm thinking of, with Ron Howard, I think he directed that. But American Graffiti, I think, was Lucas or Spielberg. It was Lucas. It was one of the, first use of airbags. Huh? 218 and the Leslie Special. Hey, a cool car that it's still around, I think, at one of the car museums. You guys remember Damnation Alley, that weird 6-wheel? Well, it had the triangular wheels that, that bounce and the whole suspension system would rotate. The armored vehicle from Damnation Alley. That was pretty cool. Hey, Samuel John, what's up? It was Roger Corman film. Okay. A lot of people rag on Corman about being king of the bees, but they worked hard on those movies, and they did a lot with a little. I mean, necessity being the mother of invention. Some of them really aren't bad movies. I mean, they're not going to win any awards, but when you're 14, 15 years old, paying 35 cents to get into the to get into the theater, those movies are great. It's like the old Hammer horror films. And, when you're 12 years old, those things are terrifying. And they certainly kept Christopher Plummer working. And was it Christopher Lee or gosh, getting all scrambled in the head here. You guys know the vampire. Yeah, I remember watching one of the movies. I forget which one it was, and there was action pileup where they crash in all the old used cars and everything. And in one scene, you see the car do the jump, crash into another car, and when in the windshield, you see the white crash helmet on the stunt driver. And I was like, well, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. That was it, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Yeah, Sharktopus. No, Croctopus. That's the one you want to see, is Croctopus. I remember Arc 2, where they had the RV on steroids. The thing I remember that was the jetpack, and the super intelligent chimp. But Grand Moff Tarkin, baby, the Tarkin Doctrine, and always playing them vampiric looking kid. Well, creepy kid. Well, I guess with that bone structure, you don't have a lot of choice. Yep, Jan Michael Vincent and George Papard, Damnation Alley. I just thought that was the Landmaster. There you go. And whatever's behind me doesn't matter. Sharknado, of course. Flying sharks. When sharks fly, baby. Yeah, I cause like everybody likes to fly, I've always had a thing about the jetpack. I want my jetpack. We're in the 21st century. I'm supposed to have my jetpack by now. They actually had an episode of that 70s show where someone was asking Red Foreman, the dad, about what he thought the 2001 would look like. And of course, in his mind, everybody's wearing silver suits and flying around in jetpacks. And then he's like, and where's my jetpack, damn it? Love Calderon and carpet slippers. Oh yeah, Magnum and Knight Rider. There is a 100% authentic, complete with recordings Knight Rider replica at Trans Am Specialties down near Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he let us sit in it and hit all of it. Of course, that airplane style yoke's not very practical to drive with, but a lot of people have made pretty accurate replicas of that car. Oh, Sky King, yeah. Sadly, old Kirby Grant that played Sky King, believe it or not, he was killed in a traffic accident coming back from a shuttle launch, or going to a shuttle launch, one or the other. And that was a real tragedy. He got thrown out of his car. No, yeah, model of Jetson's car. That'd be pretty cool. Here's what you can, if you've got a P40, you could always make the one from, what was it, Cloud Captain in the City of Tomorrow or something like that. The P40, they can fly right into the water and little props come out and push along underwater. Because I think somebody made a model of the submarine or fighter planes that Angelina Jolie's little squadron flew, but they did not have boots that fit. Oh, really? Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that. The Gumball Rally. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They have repopped the Jetsons car. Okay. I didn't know that. See? I'm learning. Yeah. Those Hammer films, they always did manage to find the hottest women. Rocketeer copied the jetpack. I don't know. I thought that was an original design. It was one of the cooler looking ones. And Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. Amphibious P40. Okay. Yeah, those daring young men and their Johnny Jalopies, those daring young men and their flying machines, they go uppity up, up. They go down, diddy down, down. Yeah. Hey, that was my youth. I grew up in the era of overpacked blood packs for all the westerns and everything, like all the spaghetti westerns and Westworld, the original Westworld with Yul Brynner. And I watched that again recently, and it's like, it doesn't hold up as well as you'd hope, but it does hold up fairly well. It's when you got a strong story and good acting, and oh man. Well, Hollywood does provide us a lot of subjects to model, and one of the big problems you run into, it's weird with some models, like the original Star Wars, before Star Wars was a thing. They actually had trouble finding a toy company that would make the Star Wars toys. By the way, you guys probably know this, but the X-Wing was first made by using a model dragster. And of course, they pulled the wheels off of it and put the little skinny X-Wings on it. But the body of the original X-Wing, to show the people this is what it looked like, was off of a model dragster. Anyway, by the way, I just saw this hobby shop yesterday. Atlantis is still making the Victory flying saucer. And that was like supposed to be a serial that went like one episode or something like that. I'd never even heard of it before. But so that's something out there that somebody, just kind of off the wall. But Thunderbirds are a go. But the Angelina was in Cloud Captain in the World of Tomorrow. Even with an eye patch, she looks hot. Yeah. Well, the 12 o'clock holds up because anything that's that historical. Steve Canyon actually was pretty good. I watched a couple of episodes on YouTube, and it, oh, you gotta take out John? Okay. We'll see you on the next stream. I'll be wrapping up here in a little while. Well, I didn't think about that, but okay. Westworld and Jurassic Park, I can certainly see the similar. Parks Gone Bad, man manipulating stuff. The new Westworld we've been watching on HBO is kind of, you might say it's gone beyond its mandate. Yeah, Future World the reason, Garfield, since you brought up Future World, and I just happened to have read this a while back, because this dovetails, we're talking about NASA. A lot of the training facilities were just not being used because Future World was made when NASA didn't have a lot going on. So they made them available to Future World, which is why Future World was able to shoot so many of its scenes on these grand sets, because they were the actual real NASA facilities, which added something to the rather, you know, it wasn't a bad movie, but it didn't. I don't think it was as good as Westworld. Of course, Westworld was the original, and of course, like you said, Crichton. So, yeah, I think they're still making the Flash Gord. I think is it Lannis still making the Flash Gord model? I think Steve Canyon. When I was growing up, Steve Canyon was a comic strip, but he had retired from the Air Force. He was always flying his Cherokee 140 around. I'm like, that's got to be a step down from, you know, F-102 to a Cherokee 140. Yeah, I think the current Westworld, they're getting a little, it's kind of gone into the, I don't know. It's becoming a cautionary tale about AI, which, if you want to believe Hawking and some of the other great scientists, they say if they ever get true AI, the first thing it's going to do is, what do we need the humans for? To quote Bender from Futurama, kill all humans. Okay, Charles, well, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Well, guys, that's probably, I'm kind of said all I got to say. I'm going to sign off, but I'm going to leave this up in case you want to chat amongst each other for a while. I'm going to start the loop again, the intro loop, so you guys, if you want to enjoy that music or see those models again. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Dusty and the Skyhawks. I remember the Skyhawks cartoon. Maybe probably the same one. I just remember it as the Skyhawks. But yeah, where they're running the flying school. Yeah, the 182 and the pirate. Yeah, yeah. And they had the old grandpa that had the Sopwith camel, who was always in full flying togs, complete with, you know, cap and goggles and scarf. And like, you know, you don't just walk around like that. The Russians coming. That was a cute movie. Well, guys, once again, I will turn this loop on, and as soon as I figure out where I put it, there it is, open video. You guys take care. Thanks for watching. Model on.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
She packed my bags last night pre-flight. 0 hours, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then.
All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
I miss the earth so much. I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space. Such a timeless flight. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. Touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rocket man. Rocket man, burning out his fuse of heaven home. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as ice, and there's no one there to raise them. If you did, and all the science I don't understand, it's just days a week. Rocket Man, Rocket Man. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh, no, no, no. I'm a rocket man. Rocket man. Burning out his streets of
underneath the lantern by the barrack gate. Darling, I remember the way you used to wait. 'Twas there that you whispered tenderly that you loved me, you'd always be my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marlene. Time would come for roll call, time for us to part. Darling, I'd caress you and press you to my heart. And there, 'neath that far-off lantern light, I'd hold you tight, we'd kiss goodnight, my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marlene. Orders came for sailing somewhere over there. All confined to barracks was more than I could bear. I knew you were waiting in the street. I heard your feet, but could not meet, my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marlene. Resting in a billet just behind the line, even though we're parted, your lips are close to mine. You wait where that lantern softly gleams, your sweet face seems to haunt my dreams, my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marlene, my lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marlene.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
She packed my bags last night pre-flight. 0 hours, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then.
All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
I miss the earth so much, I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space, such a timeless flight. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. The touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rocket man, rocket man, burning out his fuse of heaven. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as ice, and there's no one there to raise them if you did. And all the science I don't understand, it's just my job 5 days a week. Rocket man, rocket man. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh, no, no, no. I'm a rocket man. Rocket man. Burning out the streets of heaven. Rocket man. Burning out the streets of heaven. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time.
Ignition sequence start.